Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 12 of Lincoln 300. We're moving right along. In fact, after this week, we only have one more discussion as a class, and then you'll be focusing and working on your final projects. This week, we're going to be talking about church and state relations, and likely a line that you've definitely heard, even if you don't follow politics that well, is the idea of the separation between church and state. Obviously, living in the United States, you don't live in a theocracy, which would be where a deity would be recognized as the supreme civil head, and we would live our lives according to the dictates of a specific religion. Instead, we live in a nation that recognizes that there is a line between church and state relations. But where that line rests and whether state can influence religion, religion can influence states, sometimes people have different opinions on that point. And we're going to be talking about that this week. Particularly, we're going to be talking about the past. To understand our ideas about church and state relations, you really have to understand the very early history of the United States. And had you lived in the future United States prior to the American Revolution, you would have likely attended a church that was dictated by your state. For example, if you lived in Massachusetts, you might have joined the Congregationalists, or if you lived in Virginia, you might have attended the Anglican Church, the Church of England. It really wasn't an option for you not to. Should you decide not to attend, or should you choose to attend a service of a new denomination, such as the Baptists, you could be ridiculed, you could be kept out, you could be ostracized in your community. You could also be forced to pay extra taxes because of your choice of religion. So as such as this, you're going to see that as the United States forms, men like Thomas Jefferson and James Madison take a very clear interest in protecting the individual's rights to hold their own particular religious beliefs, and that the state not be able to force them to hold to hold a certain set of beliefs or to attend services that disagreed with those beliefs. In this unit, you're going to be considering the relationship between religion and government as it exists today. And there are some very interesting questions that come up about the role of church-state relations. We have seen this in the news lately, and we're going to be looking particularly at instances that have come before the Supreme Court. You've also likely probably heard the term separation of church and state before, as it's a frequently debated issue concerning the Constitution. But what's interesting is that that exact phrase appears nowhere within the Constitution. It's not there. Try as you might, you will not find it. However, the phrase did exist within a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote in 1802 to the Danbury Baptist Association. After you complete this unit, you're going to be able to do a few things. First, you're going to be able to describe the contents of Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptists because you will have read the letter. You'll be able to explain the letter's significance in debates concerning religion and state. You're going to understand why some strongly defend separation between church and state. And you're also going to understand why some strongly oppose separation between church and state. So let's look at our reading assignments for this week. Particularly to understand the ideas about church and state relations, we're going to be using a tool that comes courtesy to us by PBS, looking at different viewpoints of those who are for separation and those who are against it. First, what you'll be reading, however, is Thomas Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptists, and that comes courtesy of the Library of Congress. Next, you'll be able to view a timeline that looks at how religion and government have interacted with one another in the United States. And finally, you're going to look at a piece that divides opinions that both defend separation and those that oppose separation between church and state. Once you complete your readings, you'll return back to the course page. Oop, went a little too far. You'll return back to the course page and you will dive into the Unit 12 discussion. As always, there are 3 discussion posts that you can interact with. The first, why is the Danbury letter so significant in debates concerning government and religion? It's not the Constitution, so what makes this letter so powerful? Second, explain the positions of those who strongly defend separation between church and state and those who strongly oppose separation between church and state. Why does each side hold the opinion that it holds? Is there a middle ground that can be met between these 2 opinions? And once again, I'm not necessarily looking for your personal opinions on this topic. I really want you to evenly explain why both sides hold the opinion that each does, and then offer a suggestion for how the 2 sides can talk through their differences in opinion. And finally, this is a question that will take you back to one of our earlier lessons. How does this issue of separation between church and state tie into the Burwell v. Hobby Lobby debate that we learned about earlier in the semester? Again, avoid personal opinions. Instead, cover each side's arguments. So you will want to revisit those materials on Burwell v. Hobby Lobby if you choose to tackle question number 3. And finally, in this unit, you have another journal activity on church and state relations. This is a place for you to privately explore your thoughts on your own. I want to say to everyone, I've really enjoyed reading everyone's journal entries. There's been a wide range of thoughts on all the topics that we've covered, but what is most important is that I can see that you're all very clearly thinking about why you hold the beliefs that you hold, and some of you are even discovering that you actually have thoughts on a subject that maybe you haven't thought about before, and that might be the most exciting bit. As you go forward, please don't forget that you can reach out to me with any questions that you might have. I'm happy to discuss these topics with you. So be in touch if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing your posts on the discussion board.